Hello and welcome to DY's First Impressions and a banner review for October Legend Part 2. Halloween is over and we are back to permanent characters, and this time around Cygames has decided to release a Wind Grand right before Wind Guild War in Metera. And also on this banner we have Chichiri, a permanent character despite her looking very Valentine's-y, to be honest. And we also have the Wind Robo summon Cassiopeia. So yeah, let's get right into it. They've been putting so many wind things recently. We've had wind banners back to back to back to back to back. It's so annoying as a wind main. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the characters and the weapons. Let's start with the weapons. So Metera's bow, Aetherial Maverick, is basically a carbon copy of Yule Grand's weapon, Senengoji. And it is basically a skill damage centric weapon. It has the same impalement mod, has the same supplement, and has the same third skill here as well. So the way Wind Burst or Wind teams are currently is that normal attack burst in Wind, unlike Fire, has pretty much no skill damage. In Wind normal attack burst, you are really looking at characters like Naru, like Vampy, wherever Vampy is, like Vampy, like Galleon, like Noir, characters like this. And none of these characters really do significant or skill damage, right? So in Fire, you have a lot of these burst characters doing a bunch of skill damage. So if you look at Zeta, if you look at Wham, so all these characters do a bunch of skill damage alongside their normal attacks, and Mana Diver too. But in Wind, that is not the case. So unlike Fire, Aetherial Maverick here gets a lot less value in normal attack burst, just because our characters don't do that much skill damage. However, for anything outside of normal attack burst, so we're talking like Swan skill spamming, full autos, HL, grids, and teams, this weapon is good. So pretty much anything outside of normal attack, this weapon will be very, very, very prevalent. And this weapon will directly replace the previous skill supplemental weapon. So that includes Galleon Float. It is strictly better than Galleon Float. And it is also pretty much better than something like Shion Dagger as well. Shion Dagger has the small benefit of giving you some defenses, but honestly, you don't really need it. So if you have two of these new weapons, pretty much any team that isn't a normal attack team, you'll be chucking two of these into that sort of grid. Okay, let's move on to the character herself, Metera. So Metera is a skill damage centric character. Her kit mainly functions around her Ethereal Seal stack, which she needs 10 of to use her S1. And she regains these on Ogi, and she regains them upon dodging. She does start the battle with 10, so you can click her powerful S1 ability at the start of the fight. So this particular skill does a lot of damage, and in fact, it does enough damage that you can almost, you can OTK with this, just this skill alone. Think like Orologia. So this is a setup we just tested earlier, where pretty much you click her S1, just like you would like Orologia S1. And you can OTK with this skill. It does a lot of damage. Now, this particular setup isn't really noteworthy if you have Orologia, but if you don't have Orologia and you don't have much other forms of OTK, this is something you can consider. Now, this is a lot of overkill as well. So I was almost able to make a team with no backline or other support characters possible with pretty much the exact same grid. I just changed the summons around a bit, but in this one, I was a tiny bit off, right? You need 35 million, so we're like 350k off. So with a second copy of the bow, and slash or Cassiopeia, who we'll get to later on in the video, this is probably very much doable. I also don't have min-maxed earrings on her as well, so that's something that would probably help too. So yeah, this S1 does a lot of damage, but other than that, it also gives her guaranteed triples, it gives her 50% echo, and it also gives her supplemental damage. And then it also ends the cooldown of these two skills at the end of the turn. So overall, and all of this is for 3 turns, by the way. So it's not a bad skill. It's pretty good. And the only real downside to the skill is that it requires 10 seals after the first cast. So has a 9-turn downtime. Oh, not 9 turn. It's 8 turns once you level her up. So I'll bring up my one. So yeah, 8 turns once you level her up. 3-turn uptime. So you have 5 turns cooldown, right? Essentially 5 turns downtime. But the unfortunate thing is that since the way to gain seals is so limited, since it's only on Ogi and on dodging, I'll get to this later, you're probably not clicking this that often. So the uptime on this skill is very, very, very low. Okay, moving on. Her S2, pretty good. Yeah, does a lot of damage. I'm seeing like 19 to like 20 mil-ish damage. And it does a dispel, very nice, and does a delay. Not as nice, but might be useful. Third skill is a one-hit nuke, doesn't do too much damage, but it does hit to attack and defense stackable, so 2 debuffs. And this is her main source, in fact her only source of reliable dodge. So she gets dodge 1 time here. Now the thing here is these 2 skills are reset at the end of the turn for this. So assuming that the boss, that Metera dodges, she will have like 4 clicks of this basically. So that's 4 stacks of Ethereal Seals. You still have to get 6 stacks otherwise, like a different way. But yeah, that is something there. Her first passive is quite good. No charge bar gain upon normal attacks. That's an acceptable downside because she gets amplify skill damage, boost to dodge rate. I think I saw numbers like 30%, 40% floating around. I'm not sure. Check the wiki, see if it's updated there. And then 4 hit damage to a foe upon normal attacks. So without any skill supplemental, this is like 2.5 million damage. With skill supplemental and skill cap, it's like 4+ mil on her auto. So respectable damage. And then her second passive, upon dodging, activate Starry Sky. So you activate this. Good. And then she gets the 1 Ethereal Seal. Now, the biggest... My biggest disappointment with this kit is pretty much this passive here. Dodge is a very, very restrictive condition. Like just last banner, I was talking about how Lance's condition where not taking damage is sort of restrictive. This is even worse than that because Lance, at least if he's not targeted by the enemy, or if the boss does a non-damaging attack, he will still activate his skill. Metera's specifically needs to dodge, so the boss needs to target her, and yeah, and they can't be doing like any sort of non-attack turns as well, which is a bit of a shame because I don't think these skills here and activating this really warrants this sort of condition. For a dodge condition, I would expect these skills to be a lot more powerful. And yes, it does do a decent amount of damage, but the effects being a single dispel, we have enough auto dispellers, so that isn't too unique. So she has to be making this up in damage. But the other really big downside here is that this is her main form of stack generation, her Ethereal Seals. And if you aren't able to click this, then she won't be able to dodge reliably, which means that she's also not activating her Starry Sky reliably. So there's a bit of clunkiness here. So yeah, that's something to consider. I haven't tested her out in too much else. I've only done a couple full autos and I've only done that OTK setup. Maybe there's some things you could do in some other form of raid, but I think the fact of the matter is that since this is on dodging, which means it's pretty much after the boss attacks, that makes it so that you can't really use her skills to cancel omens. I think the fact that her stacks rely on her dodging is sort of not reliable as well. And I don't think she provides enough to warrant putting her in the team. She doesn't do like a ton of debuffs. She does do a fair amount of hits, but that's pretty much the least of Wynn's issue in something like a HL team. So yeah, I don't think she's a bad character per se, but I think she sort of goes into the same bracket of like sort of mediocre Wynn's characters that have sort of been released across this year, along with like Lance, along with like Cassius and things like that. Like, not bad characters, they're going to be usable. You will probably see Metera used in some full auto teams in Guild War. But yeah, as a Grand character, since Wynn's last Grands were Raphael, Vayne, and Metera, all three of them sort of being like mediocre, it's a little unfortunate in a world where like characters like Vajra Halloween or like Katura Summer or Sariel, you know, as a Grand are coming out. It's a little unfortunate that Wynn hasn't had a really meta-defining character at all with all of these releases this year. Wynn has had a lot of new characters this year, so yeah. But yeah, personal gripes aside, weapon is still good, and the character is fine. Maybe a budget replacement for some full autos, can be a Guild War dispeller as well. So there's that. Alright, Chichiri, her weapon is nothing really to talk about, and the character herself is a Ogi, sort of damaging, and her character, sorry, is suited for Ogi setups. I haven't had a chance to really test her out, but looking at her kit, pretty much, she has this particular skill, which does 2 debuffs here. This will be auto-cast later on in her kit. She has this buff, which is a charge bar gain, very nice for Ogi teams, obviously, and then multi-attack and dodge rate. The dodge rate is sort of meaningless, in my opinion, since it's not reliable, but the multi-attack, since many HL teams where you want to use Ogi require triple attacks for certain omens, this sort of buff is very useful there. And then finally, her third skill gives her a 5-turn buff, which makes it so that her charge attack reactivates, so double charge attack, very good. She gets 100% boost to charge bar when she first clicks it, and then while it's active, she gets the charge bar gain and CA spec. So overall, pretty good skill, right? The 5 turns, she just gets it. Now, this particular passive is interesting. Whenever she receives a boost to charge bar effect from another water ally, raise Chichiri's garniture level by 1. And then when receiving one at level 2, so basically this means every 3 boost to charge bar effects, she will activate her S1, which is the debuffs, and then it will also give a 1-turn cut to this particular skill. Now, in water, the most common source of boost to charge bar is Harcelia. Her S3 is a boost to charge bar. So every time Harcelia clicks, that's immediately 2 times right there. So that's really nice. And the way Chichiri is worded, it means that when you attack during your turn, if you give a boost to charge bar with a weapon, for example, Shishio, right? For example, something like this would also proc her passive. This would also work with other weapons who do similar things. So yeah, I think that is some really nice synergy there for Chichiri. And then her second passive is upon chain burst absolute 0. That is a 4-chain activate cutesy frolic, which is her buff. And then this part is really nice, which is that an additional effect occurs if you have a chain burst activation of 5 or more, which is a heal, so more sustain for this team. So I'm not particularly sure if Chichiri replaces anybody in the Ogi sort of core in HL teams at the moment. Like, for instance, in Vesusia at the moment, characters like Vajra, Summer Monkey, Sylvia, Yatima, Hacelia, like these sorts of characters are being used there. But I do think Chichiri might be a replacement, maybe, in some of those teams, maybe a more budget setup, in a more budget team. And then at the very least, I do think that her being able to pretty much double Ogi a lot of the time is sort of impactful as well. Since this is a 5-turn duration, and you can, if you have Hacelia in the team, you can pretty much get this every turn. So that's a 1-turn cut. So this would mean that this has 100% uptime. I think is quite nice. So you would have Fated Chain a lot of the time. You would just be doing like a bunch of Ogi damage. So yeah, and then you're getting all this healing and these sort of free buffs as well. So yeah, I think she's a solid Ogi support character there, and can probably do some decent damage herself too. All right, and then finally, Cassiopeia. Not much to be said here. Cassiopeia is the Robo summon for Wind. So she provides supplemental damage to Wind allies, provided that they are above 80% HP. So this is a bigger value when maxed out than Belial. Belial is 30k. Robo summons are 50k? Let me just double check that. Robo summons are 50k, yes. All right. So yeah. Now, the one small caveat here is that Wind is probably one of the few elements that gets much less benefit from this, and this is mostly due to the fact that Wind plays in Enmity a lot for burst. In normal attack burst in Wind, you are, for the most part, doing something like this, where you are playing Spartan, you are clicking Molon Labe, which is Spartan's ultimate mastery skill that cuts your HP by 40%, and you are also doing something like calling Demon Brim, and then you are also having 2 bloodshed weapons in your grid. So in a team like this, obviously Cassiopeia doesn't do anything. So Cassiopeia's real only use will be on stamina teams, which do exist, right? But I think they'll only really be for lower difficulties. Like, for example, this is a 1 button, 1 summon, 1 turn NM95 setup. This is pure stamina. So in a team like this, yes, she would be better than Belial. Actually, I lied. She won't be, because even in this sort of team, you need Yatima. And since her call is callable, or her call is recastable, sorry, Yatima might click her instead of these 2 summons, which is what we want. So we can't actually put her in this team either. So that pretty much reduces her for burst to Swan teams. Because Swan teams play in stamina, and then you want to spam a couple turns, normally around 2 to 3 turns for like NM200 or NM100 and 150, sorry. So yeah, it was 3 turn last year. I think maybe this year we can get to 2 turns, but yeah, we'll have to see. But the other thing there is that if you are tanking boss attacks, you might be below 80%, so you might have to pot, so it could be a little bit annoying. Basically, all this is to say that unlike other elements, because pretty much every other element is stamina oriented, since Wind Burst is so heavily enmity oriented, I think Cassiopeia has much less value in Wind. So, with all that out of the way, should you spark this banner? I think that this banner is an easy skip unless you are a Wind main who is heavily invested into Guild War. I think that's pretty much the only reason to spark, and it's the only reason I personally sparked as well. Your goal really here is to get a copy of Metera along the way, and then hopefully you get Cassiopeia along the way as well. And then you can spark your second Metera at the end of the spark. This is pretty good raid ups for Wind. There is no additional raid ups on this banner. So yeah. Now, I think for most people, you should be skipping this banner for a couple different reasons. Mainly, everything here is permanently available. Every Legend Gala, Metera will be there. Every banner, Chichiri and Cassiopeia will be there. We're at a point where we are so close to very limited things coming up, which is Evangelion, if you care about that. We have November Legend, which is the beginning of holiday characters. We have December Flash, which is holiday characters. And then we have December 28th, which is the end of year grand, which has roulette on it. So it's a very discounted spark, which is quite nice. And then, of course, we have New Year's banner, which is a new Providence summon most of the time with roulette. So those are some really, really core and key banners coming up. And then if you look even further, we have Valentine's. So sparking on a banner where everything here is permanently available is, in my opinion, a little bit of a mistake, unless, like I said, you are a Wind main who is very invested into Wind Guild Wars, since there's two good quote unquote Wind things on the banner here on radar. Grabbing some of them along your spark can be quite nice. But if you're not even interested that much in Wind Guild War, you can spark these at a later point. Like during roulette on New Year's Gala, you can spark this then, and then during anniversary, you can get your second copy, something like that. You can plan for that too. So yeah, something to think about. Like I said, I personally sparked on this banner purely because I wanted the best chance at getting 2 Meteras and grabbing a Cassiopeia along the way. Unfortunately, I was not able to grab 2 of this weapon, so I'll have to grab my second copy at some other point in the future. But yeah, I think unless you're in a position like me, skipping this banner is definitely the wisest choice for sure. All right, so with that all done, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have fun farming, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Goodbye. Bye-bye.